What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tabletop Never Stop. Today we're doing some Baratheon spoilers, so let's just jump right in. First off, we have Loras Tyrell, King's Squire, a 2-cost unit with loyalty to Renly Baratheon. And for 2 points, we're getting precision, which means that when this unit rolls 6s, there's no defense saves on them. And that's a pretty powerful ability, especially when we're trying to get past high defense. Now it's 2 points, and it's in House Baratheon, which is maybe not the house most suited for precision. Precision's really good on the charge, and Baratheons are kind of designed to hang out and grind a unit down. High defense, and then lots of tactics cards that trigger while units are engaged. I don't know if precision's like a natural, has a lot of natural synergy. That being said, we know there's going to be Tyrell units, or, Renly loyal units that maybe will make a little more sense for Loras to be in. I don't really love him in any of the base Baratheon units, definitely not Wardens or Sentinels. Stag Knights make a little bit of sense because once they're wounded, they have critical blow, and critical blow works really well with precision. It still doesn't work super well because that means they basically have to win a fight, get into a fight, get injured, kill the unit, and then on their next, when they charge into the new unit, they'll have precision and critical blow, which is good, but that's not amazing synergy, and it's a little hard to set up. We could, of course, always put Loras in a neutral unit. I just did a video the other day on the Stormcore Mercenaries, so that'd be a 5-cost unit that with adaptive would only cost 6 points to have total to have Loras in. So that's certainly a cheap way to get precision. Maybe not the best fit in the world for him. Although, again, if we're just trying to punch through high defense with precision, that's not a bad combo. I actually like him a lot in the Bastards Girls. Figure, it's a highly mobile unit. And the combination of shooting and then charging in with precision is, very likely to finish a unit off. And then, of course, then we can charge in again, which is what we want to do with precision. We want to be charging with it as much as possible so that we're getting those rerolls and getting more 6s that are auto hits. It's also worth noting that precision gets nerfed very heavily by weakened. There's weakened tokens everywhere. Precision's going to be less useful because you're going to just see less 6s, even on the charge. And that's Loras, the attachment. And it takes us to Loras, the commander. He has Growing Strong, Loved by the Small Folk, and Overgrowth are his 3 tactics cards. We'll talk about Overgrowth in a second. But first, he has Expert Duelist, an ability that we've seen before on Kingsguard Jaime. Each time this unit makes a melee attack against an enemy infantry unit, it deals 1 additional wound. If there is an attachment in that unit, you may instead roll a die. On a 3+, kill that attachment. So, Expert Duelist is a good ability. The chance to kill a enemy attachment is great. Obviously, there's some counters to this, then we can just avoid, keep their attachments away from Loras. But, if they're so scared to even fight you, you've already won. And if you've got a scenario where you're facing 0 attachments, meaning an NCU commander with no attachments, you're still getting wounds every turn. So you figure probably 5 wounds over the course of the game if Loras survives. That's not the leading unit, but those wounds add up. And anytime you knock an enemy down a rank and they're coming back at you with less dice, that's great. I'm not saying that it's a bad attachment. I just don't like attachment killers as a mechanic. I think it's bad for the game, honestly, and I've talked about this a lot because there's been a lot of this neutral stuff that's had attachment killers, and it's been pointed out to me, since I made that video, you can use your attachment killers to kill the attachment killers. That's an even worse scenario to me. Now we're just trying to snipe each other snipers. That's not the game that I want to be playing, and I would say what I said the last time I talked about this, which is that it doesn't really feel like the game is moving to some horrible scenario where there's no attachments being used. But I don't think these cards are necessarily a good idea. On the other hand, I think it does make sense, it shouldn't just be one faction that's allowed to kill attachments. So not really objecting to Baratheons getting a attachment killer. I just think that in general they're not great for the game. But yeah, so Starks have one through Jaqen. The Free Folk have Ygritte. The Lannisters already have Jaime. It's basically this card. And I don't think Night's Watch has any snipers, but of course they can take any of the neutral ways to kill attachments. Okay, so there's our commander attachment. Great if you're going up against enemy attachments. Not so good if you were playing against an NCU commander, but not useless. And then of course he has his 3 tactics cards. We've only seen one of them. It's Overgrowth. When a friendly combat unit makes a melee attack, before attack dice are rolled, for each enemy rank destroyed by this attack, this unit may restore D3 wounds. Okay, so ideal scenario, right, is you hit an enemy with 9 wounds left, and you kill them. To do that, you of course would need critical blow. But you do that, and then all of a sudden you're rolling D3 wounds 3 times, 3D3 wounds. Of course, that's probably not going to be what's happening, but there's a decent chance of getting destroyed 2 ranks, because to do that you only need 5 wounds in like the perfect scenario. So that can probably happen pretty relatively easy. So I think there's some pretty obvious natural synergy for Stag Knights here. You know, they have high defense, very dangerous still when they're on their last rank, and although they get less dangerous if they were to heal back up, you know, they're an expensive unit, and cool, injure them again and let me get them more powerful. So I love this with Stag Knights, played on Stag Knights, and you know, if Loras is in the Stag Knights, that wound counts towards potentially removing the rank. So you know, you might be able to, will help you squeeze out an extra wound, which might get you an extra rank, which might get you some extra health. And of course, this is not infantry only, so I actually quite love this on cavalry. Cavalry generally love their healing because you know, they need to be at their top rank. They're not most cavalry units are pretty sucky once they lose a rank. So you know, throw some healing on them is pretty good. So I could definitely see we haven't seen the Baratheon cavalry, but I mean, even this would be, you know, this would feel pretty good on some flayed men too. So some good uses for that. Obviously, we can't put Loras in our cavalry, but doesn't mean we can't use the card on them. Okay, so that was our Renly supporters that we've seen so far, and now we're switching over to House Seaworth. First of all, we got Devin Seaworth, a 2-cost attachment with loyalty to Stannis Baratheon, the one true king. I didn't forget. And don't you forget it either. So, Davos is a 2-cost attachment. He has an order, Reckless Heroism. When this unit declares a charge action, the unit suffers D3 wounds, but counts as rolling a 6 for any charge distance die rolled. And he's also a true loyalist. If attached to a unit with loyalty, when attacking with only 1 remaining rank, that unit may count as having 2 remaining ranks instead. Okay, so one at a time. The order, Reckless Heroism, you know, taking D3 wounds to guarantee a 6. Situationally, I think I like it a lot. Again, the Stag Knights, for example, get more powerful as they get injured, so you know, it's less dangerous for them to be risking it, and you know, guaranteeing that your unit can get into combat where Baratheon units excel because of their tactics cards makes a lot of sense. Especially like if I had Ours is the Fury, which is the tactics card that lets you get a free attack after you're not destroyed in combat. Makes a fair amount of sense to, you know, to Reckless Heroism with my Stag Knights into you. You attack me, you know, maybe you drop me down a rank, and now I get a bonus, and then I attack you back with Ours is the Fury. You know, I like that ability. You know, is it worth 2 points? It doesn't super feel like it is. Of course, he has a second ability, which will only apply to units with loyalty. We haven't seen a unit with loyalty yet. But, you know, attack a rank up could potentially, you know, sounds pretty decent. If you think about something like the Lannister Halberdiers, who don't lose any dice until they get down to their first rank, you know, if there was a unit at a dice line similar to that, then True Loyalty would be really good, because they would basically mean they always get an attack at full dice. But that's just conjecture about you know, a unit that I have not seen. So, you know, You know, so we're basically waiting to see a loyalty Stannis unit, and then once we've seen one, we'll know whether or not we want to put Devin in. But I don't hate him with Stag Knights. I think I could probably find a better use for 2 points, but still. Alright, so we're moving on to the patriarch of the Seaworth household, Davos Seaworth, the commander version. This is the hero of Blackwater, which I would imagine at some point in the future we'll get a Davos King's Hand version. And I also, worth noting, I'd be surprised if we didn't get a NCU version of Davos as well, because I mean, he's very much a diplomatic character. Stannis is always sending him off to do stuff. Or he was running around reading those letters about how Joffrey's a product of incest, and of course his activities in Dance with Dragons are very much diplomatic. And of course, not to go too much on a book tangent, but Davos' story is very untold. So if we ever get Winds of Winter, I'm sure we'll learn a lot, about Davos, and might potentially affect future cards if that book ever comes out. So anyway, Commander Davos has 4 tactics cards. They're Everything for the True King, Flea Bottom Tricks, and Parlay. We'll talk about Flea Bottom Tricks in a minute. So Commander Davos is loyal to Stannis Baratheon, no surprise there, and then he gives us Pathfinder, which is +1 speed and the ability to ignore dangerous, hindering, and rough terrain. Pathfinder's a great ability, and the Baratheons are slow, so extra speed is neat. Alright, and then his tactics card is Flea Bottom Tricks, as I already said. And before we read the text, just want to point you to the bottom of this card where it says, before the game begins, remove the Ards is the Fury tactics card from the tactics deck and replace it with this card. So now we have a commander that actually modifies the base deck of the faction he's in, which is quite interesting. We'll probably talk about that a little bit at the once we're done talking about the card itself. It means that we're giving up Ards is the Fury. Ards is the Fury is a pretty good card. It's a free attack if you survive an attack. Very easy to use. And so, what are we getting from giving it up? Well, we're getting, when a friendly combat unit activates, that unit may make a free march or maneuver action. So, this is, we're really seeing, Davos modify the Baratheon deck. Base Baratheons are all about grinding you out, and then, we're all of a sudden we're getting this crazy amount of maneuverability and mobility for the faction. It's being kind of represented more as a trick, whereas, the Starks are just kind of fast. So you can think about something like Swift Advance. So we're giving up a very powerful card, and we're getting a free march or maneuver. So hopefully we're using this free march or maneuver to get behind an enemy and hit them in the back. So giving up our free retaliation attack, is that better than getting to charge an enemy in the rear? It's probably a pretty good trade. And of course it's versatile. We could also use this just to grab an objective. And if we consider how defensive some of our Baratheon units are, getting to an objective first with our free maneuver, and then our free march, and then our free maneuver, and then a march, or however you want to think of this double move, decent chance enemies are going to have a hard time getting us off of that objective. So it's probably a pretty fair trade. Definitely is changing the way that the army behaves. And if you consider that you could potentially attach Davos to that unit, all of a sudden that makes this march even more valuable. Now instead of the Stag Knights going 10, they'd be going 12 on their free march. I say I really appreciate the idea that Davos is affecting the deck, the tactics deck. I'd be really surprised if, for example, we didn't get something similar with Grey Worm. When Grey Worm comes to the House Targaryen, that Targaryen tactics deck is very cavalry focused. And so I would expect our Unsullied commander to, swap some of those cards out for something a little more infantry focused maybe. And I think that's another really cool way to make the factions feel different, which is a thing that Simon has really, really impressed me with. It's kind of, I've always thought of that as the two pillars of war games. Basically, how smooth is the game, and then how different and fun are the factions. And if I can attack the game for a second, I don't love tactic cards, in the sense that I don't think they don't help the game run smoothly. And if we were to compare this to my other favorite war game is Kings of War, which has a really, really smooth flow of the game. I move all my units, and then you move all your units, and it's very fast. You could say it's not. You could have some complaints about that, but it does work in the game itself. It's a really smooth game. I've taught people how to play it in 25 minutes and gotten very large games done in a couple of hours. When you start talking about triggers, which is what tactics cards do, it really, to me, it kind of bogs the game down and it's the type of minutia that I don't particularly enjoy. But so Kings of War, very smooth, super boring as far as the factions all are exactly the same. And I mean that literally, in the sense that the only difference between factions basically is that every faction has a special rule. Elves always get to reroll ones, and dwarves have better morale, and like that's kind of how it works across the board. And so every faction feels exactly the same, and there's really no reason people do it, but there's no reason to own more than one Kings of War army, in my opinion. They're just like a tiny, tiny different flavor. But Ice and Fire, all 7 factions, man, all feel really, really different, and that's a great thing, for the game and its longevity. It's a bad thing for all our wallets, but that is what it is. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough for today, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. And if it was at all informative or useful, please give it a like and, maybe subscribe. A very large portion of the viewers are not subscribed to the channel, so if you could subscribe, that would help me out a lot. I appreciate it. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.